Ghost with Cats, Chapter 15 New Moon Springs. It was past midnight when Annie turned onto an almost unmarked road. She drove down along the small river before turning again to cross over a small single-lane bridge. Climbing over the ridge and back into a hidden valley. Everything glowed in the faint light reflecting from the snow. She opened her window and typed numbers into a small metal box with a keypad. The metal gate creaked and shuddered as it opened. The tracks led them closer to the cliff through the trees. Annie stopped in front of a large log home. The moon was almost overhead. The air was frigid, but the house glowed welcomingly. She pulled her pack and 2 of the extra bags from the Jeep. Breeze took several other bags, but his head twisted this way and that, looking at their new surroundings. Tall stared skyward. The stars shone brilliantly in the sky as the moonlight pooled around them. Vaughan turned in circles, taking in the view. "Gentlemen, welcome to New Moon Springs. A good place to get away from wolves," Annie announced. Her soft voice was the only sound besides their breathing. "My lady, is this a real place?" Breeze asked. She climbed the steps and keyed the code. The door unlocked. Inside, the house was warm. There was a note from the caretaker dated earlier the previous day's evening. She helped Breeze put everything away from the Jeep, then parked it in the garage. It was 2 a.m. when Vaughan finally came in, but Tall stayed outside. She went to find him before turning in for the night. Tall stood next to the stream in the stillness of the valley. There were no sounds except the water and his heart. He first inhaled the stillness. He felt completely at peace, for the first time since he arrived on this planet. He let his awareness drift out to the edges of the field, up the trees to the mountains, and over the terrain. He could feel the traffic on the other side of the ridge, and the airplanes flying high above. He pulled himself back. Annie was walking toward him through the snow. She glowed in his expanded awareness like a light, like hope. It was so strange that a female, who he had barely known a handful of days, could have so altered his perceptions of everything he knew. "Are you okay?" She sounded concerned. "I am well. It is just this place. It reminds me of home," he answered. "You live in the mountains?" she asked. He chuckled before he explained. He could only ever dream of living in a place as beautiful as this. There was no place on Eloh or in its colonies that could compare to what he had seen on this blue and green world. "No, I live on a warship, but I have a sanctum room where the stars shine in and the silence is pure, and I can feel my soul be still, like here." "Oh, I'm sorry. I hope I didn't disturb you. Our rooms are ready. Yours is on the 2nd floor, second on the left from the stairs. Good night, Tall." She turned to go in, but he caught her arm and hugged her for several minutes. He could feel her shivering. The temperature was dropping. It must be many degrees below the freezing point of water. "Thank you for risking so much for me and my servants," he said quietly. "I have an entire fleet, and all of whom would die at my command. Over 30,000. You owe me no loyalty, and are not sworn from birth to protect me and my abilities. But you do. Why? Well, because it's the right thing to do. I feel like I owe you. You were lured here by my parents' research, and I don't know why. So I feel like I should be protecting you and helping you. I want to. I really do. She shivered as she spoke. And honestly, I feel safe with you and Vaughn and Brace, which is weird because that is something I haven't felt for a very long time. I will miss y'all a lot when you go. She looked up at him and realized the wide open slit pupils of his eyes weren't completely black. They looked like the night sky behind him. There were, like, stars inside his eyes. It was quite a beautiful effect. With his dark hair and strong features, he really was very handsome. I shouldn't be out here alone with him, she thought, her heart fluttering and not from the cold. Are you cold? He asked in concern. The dark fur lining of her hood framed her pale face, making her seem more beautiful in the moonlight. He could see the reflection of the night in her eyes. It made his heart feel strange. Aren't y'all? She shivered again. No, the temperature change does not affect me, he answered honestly. I am quite comfortable. You live in the mountains. Do you not enjoy the climate? I like the scenery. But the scenery comes with the temperature. It is not logical to live where the temperature is uncomfortable for you. Suddenly, his pragmatic nature annoyed her. I don't usually stay here in the winter. She gave him a dark look, and she felt like all he ever did was judge her. I hate the cold. That's why I live in Texas. I'm going inside. Moment over. Then she stomped through the snow back to the house. Tal watched her go, confused. For a few moments she seemed content to be with him under the stars, and now she was upset with him. He did not understand the volatile emotional nature of the females of this world. He reached out to the stillness around him, but the strange feeling she stirred in him lingered. It took him over an hour to still his soul again. Early the next morning, Annie was in the kitchen talking with an older man she introduced as Boaz. He was the caretaker. He did not seem surprised by the appearance of the off-worlders. She had volunteered Breeze to help with the firewood, and the silver-haired man gladly accepted. Vorn and Boaz spent a lot of time talking in the man's native language, which was remarkably similar to their language. Tal wandered the rooms and found many books, but no Bible to finish his reading. Later that afternoon, he saw Annie outside in a round fenced area with several large animals called horses. She was rubbing them with a bristled piece of wood. He watched her handling the large animals, who pushed each other and stamped for her attention. She petted and talked to them. It seemed she genuinely cared for them. The large animals could easily trample her, but they didn't. They just wanted her affection. Suddenly she stopped and turned toward the house, so he stepped away from the window. She could not see that he was watching her from the dark room, but he was sure she could feel it somehow. Our Annalise is lovely, isn't she? An elderly voice came from behind him. Tal turned. I have never seen those creatures she is working with before. They are what you call horses? He evaded the question by asking a question. A very old man with a cane stood by the door of the office. A younger man in a suit was beside him. Yes, they are horses, but all creatures love her. They cannot help themselves. Forgive me. I am Jacob, and this is my driver, Ari. It is my honor to meet the brother of my brother Isaac's old friend. Ari, please get refreshments for us and give us an hour or so. The younger man helped the elderly man to sit. Tal noticed he carried a weapon. The elderly man waved for Tal to choose a chair, so he did. After Ari left, Jacob announced, Isaac's friend was Regent Vanth True, a mystic of the Elohim, as my people call them. What are you called, traveler? Tal sat up straighter, introducing himself. I am Admant Vanth Tal, one of the 12 defenders of my people. Ari returned with the drinks and left, closing the door behind him. But from the shadow under the door, Tal knew the bodyguard stood just outside. Jacob nodded, asking, Ah, so it is as Opir told my brother. 2 of your family in less than 10 years have come back to see our Annalise. Your brother was the first, and you are the second. The old man paused, appraising Tal's reaction. He nodded slightly, drawing a deep breath. I must ask if you know why, Vanth Tal. Because your expression says you do not know what your brother told mine and his friend the sheik. I do not, Jacob. I was only told to watch for what she calls the Pandora energy by my brother, who died under curious circumstances after his visit here. He said I would find a light to help our people, but what he was unclear, as his kind often are, Tal explained. And have you found this light? Jacob asked. I have not. I see, the old man hummed and sipped his coffee. Do you know how long our 2 peoples have been friends, and why we stopped being friends? No, I do not, Tal answered honestly. I was not even aware that this planet had sentient life until I tracked the energy here. Annie told me we weren't supposed to be on this world. I do not understand why it was hidden. None of my trusted allies knew of it either. I asked them before I came. It is far from the heart of our kingdom. Jacob took off his jacket and rolled up his sleeve. Tal noted there were faded numbers on his arm and knew he was one of the survivors of the Holocaust from the Second World War. I think we will be talking very late. My people are a difficult one. We cause trouble wherever we go, but none can carry God's heart as we do. Ari. The young man opened the door immediately. Ari, we are going to stay the night. Bring us dinner. Go. Ari nodded and closed the door. Let us begin. Tell me, Vanth Tal, have you read our Torah? The next morning, Tal helped Jacob into his car. There was a plane waiting to take Jacob from Denver to New York, ahead of the incoming blizzard. No one except his driver and 2 others knew the rabbi left the giant city. Jacob apologized for Isaac not being able to come in person, but circumstances as they were, Isaac was being closely watched and could not risk exposing Annie's location. His visit left Tal with a lot to think about. The elderly man was a wealth of information and never seemed too tired. He also had an unusual sense of humor which was not unlike True's. Tall recognized many similar traits between the rabbi and his regent brother. It seemed the mystics of both worlds enjoyed the confusion they caused and never gave a simple answer. Tall had learned his brother had come to this world dozens of times over the half a century. True's mentor, Regent Abel Isaac, helped establish a country for Isaac and Jacob's people. True and Isaac aided them as their ancient ancestors had once aided them thousands of years before it was decided their people should live separately. It was all so incredible. Mythology and history and faith were one and were all based on the same truth. At one point, their peoples were joined in belief and in marriage. Still, Tall felt he was missing something important. "Did you have a good talk with Rabbi Jacob, Master Tall?" Boaz asked. "It was unexpected," Tall answered. The caretaker stepped down beside him. He carried himself with the sureness of movement of someone who had decades of warrior training. "There is much that I am told, much that I am not. Your bodyguard Brees works very hard. He has a good heart, but he is not born from a mother, as I suspect you and Vorn were." The caretaker lit a cigarette and smoked for a few minutes. Paul said nothing. In the snowy silence, there was only the sound of their breathing and the burning tobacco. Boaz rubbed the end of his cigarette butt on the sole of his boot. It was military style, similar to the ones Tall had seen at the Pandora compound. "Just so you know, I am only here to protect Annalise from the wolves of this world. You live because Rabbi Jacob and Rabbi Isaac do not think you endanger her." Boaz put the snuffed cigarette butt in his shirt pocket. "I know Breeze is not a threat to her. He, like all large beasts, adores her. But if I think you or Vorn are, I will kill you both without hesitation, and you will not even know you are dead." Tall only nodded as he watched Rabbi Jacob's car drive away over the hill that hid the little valley. But in Boaz's place, he felt he would do the same. When he turned to answer the threat, the caretaker was gone. Tall was impressed. There were few who could leave an Adman's presence unnoticed. He remained in front of the house, staring at the view beyond the glistening snow-covered meadow. It truly was a beautiful world. He could understand why his ancestors had come, but he still didn't know why they left and never came back.